We're making really good progress so far. As we continue to build more challenging things for our app, we're going to have to improve our debugging skills. In this video, we're going to learn about how to use a tool called the debugger. We'll access the debugger using Android Studio, and the debugger is meant to help us identify and fix errors in our code. The great thing about the debugger is that we can pause the app at a certain point in time, and then we can inspect the whole state of the app more closely. Normally, when the app is running on our device, all the code gets executed very rapidly. Within milliseconds, it can respond to button clicks, update the screen, calculate the price, and etc. But with the debugger, we can pause at a specific line of code in our app. Then we can step through our code line by line as quickly or slowly as we want. If you want to learn more techniques on how to debug your app in Android Studio, just search for Debugging Android Studio. This first link is good. It's a developer.android.com page, and it has a bunch of techniques on how to debug your app. Together, we're going to learn about how to work with breakpoints. After this course, you can always come back to this page to refresh your memory. In this exercise, I want to show you that your Android device does run each line of code one at a time from top to bottom within a method. We'll also verify that clicking on the plus button does trigger the increment method, and clicking on the minus button does trigger the decrement method. First, add something known as a breakpoint. A breakpoint marks a specific line of code where the debugger should pause when it reaches here. The red circular dot indicates that the breakpoint is on this line on line 25 of our main activity file. You can add breakpoints to as many places as you want in your code. But for now, I'm just going to add one on the first line of the increment method. Then I can hit this bug icon to run the app in debug mode. The app will only pause on these breakpoints when the app is running in debug mode. If you run the app normally with the screen play button, then it won't pause at these breakpoints. For a brief moment on the device, you may have seen a dialog that says waiting for debugger. There's also a button to force close the app, but don't click on that. Just wait for the debugger to attach and that message will go away soon. Then the app starts like normal and you can interact with it. Now in debug mode, this window will pop up and show the status of the debugger. If you don't see it, you can click on this tab down here called debug. If I hit this plus button here, I expect the increment method will be triggered and that the app will pause at this breakpoint. Let's see what happens. Cool, it stops there. In the debug pane, we see a list of variables. This reflects the current state of the app where it was paused. We don't see our quantity variable yet because it hasn't finished executing this line of code yet. There's a bunch of options on how to proceed with debugging, but I'm going to click on this option that says Step Over. This will step over the current line of code to the next line of code. Now the app is currently paused at line 26. We finished executing line 25, so that's why we see the quantity variable showing up down here. This list of variables also shows the current value of each variable. We can also verify that the quantity variable has a value of 3, which we assigned up here. We know that the app is currently paused at this point because normally when you hit the plus button, it would automatically update the quantity to be 3. But since the quantity is still at 2, we know that it hasn't finished executing the increment method yet. We can click Step Over to go to the next line. At this point, the method is done, and we're not really interested in how it actually updates the screen, so let's just hit Resume Program. All we care about is that it actually does update the screen. If you're interested, you could have clicked on these other options to look at more details of how it actually updates the screen. At this point, the app is running normally, but the debugger is still attached, so if I hit the plus button again, it will stop at this breakpoint. If I want to detach the debugger so that it doesn't always stop on this line when I hit the plus button, I can just click on this red stop button. Now whenever I hit the plus button, it responds immediately and updates the value to 3. Now I want you to try it on your computer. Go ahead and add a breakpoint to the increment and decrement methods. Then run the app in debug mode, and then on the device, try to trigger each of these breakpoints. Then step through each line of code, making sure that the quantity variable shows up with the right value in the variables list. You can click on this play button to resume execution of the app so that it runs as normal. Or you can hit the stop button to detach the debugger.